Hey folks, Tim Newman with Softlight Studios coming to you from Columbus, Ohio. We continue to be in lockdown state pretty much all across the United States, and I'm happy to be there. Much rather be indoors hanging out with the dogs and hanging out with the family than being outdoors trading germs with people I don't know. I hope you're doing the same, and I hope you're taking care of yourself. Now, in our video today, we are going to explore the concept of editing content on a layer for visibility versus applying a layer mask to that layer to determine visibility. I think once you're done looking at this, you might have a whole new way of looking at how to control layering and compositing in Photoshop. Hope you enjoy. In today's video, rather than have you work your way through a complete Photoshop project, what I would like you to do is observe me completing a specific task in a Photoshop document that I have assembled for you here today. And as I'm completing this task, what I would really like you to do is reflect upon the difference between putting content on a layer and editing that content to determine visibility versus putting a layer mask on that same layer and using that layer mask to determine what is and is not visible. I think once you've seen both approaches, it won't take you long to realize the advantages that using layer masks on your layers in Photoshop can provide to your editing process. Let's hop over into Photoshop and take a look. So here in Photoshop, we have a picture of the Yosemite Valley from the Merced or Marquee River, depending on how you choose to approach that pronunciation. Let's talk real quickly about this picture and what I wanted to do here in making this document. I'm kind of treating this as a poster, and what I would like is I would like the words Yosemite Valley over here along the side and the bottom. And I've created some text layers to do that, and I've applied some layer effect styles and some gradients to the letters, and this is what I settled upon. Ultimately, when I was done with that, I decided that I didn't really like the way the text floated in front of the picture, and I wanted a little bit of a background behind it that kind of separated it from the picture, but still allowed the picture to show through. So that's what you're seeing here. So let me get myself out of the way here, and we'll get back to taking a look at the layers control panel over here. And the first thing we're going to do is turn off this overlays group. Now, I could show you how I put this overlay together initially, but what we're going to do is we're going to work through this from scratch here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the plus icon down here in the layers control panel to give myself a new layer. And this is where I'm going to create that little border that goes behind my text but in front of the picture. So I'm going to start off with the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to zoom out one level just to give myself some room for these marquees. And I'm going to come over here and draw a marquee down this side, and I kind of like where that's at. And then I'm going to come over here and I want to add in the L-shaped bottom of that rectangular marquee. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down that shift key to put me into the additive modifier mode for the marquee tool. And you can see I'm drawing this new marquee over here, but the old one is still there. And as soon as I let go, I've got that nice L-shaped selection that we were hoping for. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the paint bucket tool, and I'm just going to come up here and with my Option key on the Mac, Alt key on Windows, I'm going to sample a little bit of that yellow color right there, and I'm going to say, let's go ahead and fill this into our active selection. So there we go. Our selection is built. Doesn't look exactly like what I had in mind, but that's easily fixed. I'm going to come over here and dial this opacity to 65%, and I'm going to change my blend mode to color, which kind of allows us to blend the color in the background with the color in this layer here in a pretty nice positive way. And I like that. And I think last but not least, I'm going to add a layer effect style here. We'll put on Bevel and Emboss, and we'll go ahead and bevel and emboss that. And you can see it's got a nice little 3D look to it now. I'll go ahead and take that selection out of the way with the Command D key sequence on the Mac. That's Control D on Windows. And there you go. There's our little overlay over the picture, but behind the text. I think it looks pretty good. But one of the things that I can observe real quickly here is I don't really like the width of it in relationship to the word Yosemite or to the word valley. I don't think it's quite the size I want it to be. So now I'm going to grab my rectangular marquee tool and I'm going to come down here and say, I think this needs to be a little bit wider here. So there's a new selection that I think gives me the width I want. And it probably needs to be a little bit taller across the bottom. So I'll turn on that plus key and I'll make this a little bit bigger. And that gives us a new additional selection there. I can grab the paint bucket key and I can paint in here with that color. Let's go ahead and drop that in there. There we go. And now I have that wider border that I like, and I think that works just fine. So that approach worked. There wasn't any issue with that. But I want you to look at a different approach to doing this and consider a couple of the advantages that we have here. So I'm going to turn off this first layer that I just added in here, make it go away for a minute. I'm going to add in another layer. And on this layer, I'm going to grab that paint bucket tool and I'm just going to fill in the whole layer. But just to make it different, let's sample another color here. Let's grab this kind of brownish color over here. And let's go ahead and fill in that layer with that color. Now, obviously, that's a bit of a problem because we blocked the entire layer below it. But let's go ahead and fix that real quickly. So again, opacity of 65%, and let's change our blend mode to color again. So now we got a little bit different color than what we did here in that layer one example, but it's covering the whole layer. Here's the really great part about it. If I come over here and grab the rectangular marquee tool, and obviously I'm stuck in the middle of some step there, so let's grab the rectangular marquee tool and come down here and draw out a marquee here, I've essentially got the opposite of that L-shaped selection that I had before. So I can simply invert this selection, which I can do up here at the Select menu, Inverse, or I can use the shortcut that you're seeing here, Shift-Command-I on the Mac, Shift-Control-I on Windows. And now I've got that L-shaped selection again. This time, instead of painting in that selection and adjusting that selection, I'm just going to come over here and click on the Add Layer Mask icon, and there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and just steal this layer effect style here. So holding down the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key on Windows, drag that layer effect up to this layer, and there's my three-dimensional bevel and emboss, if you will. And you can see that if I wanted to change this, the color permeates the entire layer there. I'm just using the layer mask to determine what should and shouldn't be visible. If I decide, the better way to take a look at this would be to reload this selection, I can come over here and use the Command key to reload it. And I could draw a whole new selection. I could come over here and say, well, I want this to be not quite as thick here. I think that's a better ratio there. And then I'm going to go ahead and invert that. So there's a whole new L-shaped selection. And I'm going to come over here, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to delete the layer mask that's currently here. And with this selection still active, I'm going to click the Add Layer Mask icon. And now I've got a new border around the left and bottom edge of the picture. So fairly similar in terms of approaches, and I'm getting the same result out of both of them. The key difference here is I don't have to worry about redrawing the L shape exactly the way I want it to be, getting back to that exact color I used last time and refilling that in. The color is uniform across the entire layer. I'm just interactively deciding when I do and do not want to change that mask. And here's the really great part about it. I can come back and change this at any point in time. Now, this just doesn't apply to adding in this border here. This applies to things like adjustment layers and edits. If I were trying to, for example, composite a picture with one person into a group of maybe 4 other people, they couldn't all make it to that photo shoot, and I'm going to composite them together, I wouldn't go and select and cut that person out and put them on the new picture that I wanted to be on. I would build a mask around them. That way, if I ever needed to add or subtract that portion of the image, maybe I missed a little bit of the edge on a sleeve in a shirt, or I didn't get all 5 fingers in a hand, I don't have to worry about going back and reselecting and copying it back over again. all of that content is still there. I just need to simply edit the mask to allow more of that to show. So a lot of times when I'm working on this kind of stuff, I'm using this approach to get me to what we're seeing here on the screen, is this layer mask applied to this layer that allows me to get to the result I want. All right, so there you have it. I think this is a pretty powerful example of the advantages of layer masks to decide visibility of content versus editing the content itself. I'll have a couple more examples in the future days coming up here to kind of solidify this point, if you will. This is a good starting point, but I think you really want to kind of take this one to heart, because this can really change the efficiency and flexibility in your edit process. I hope you're all staying healthy and safe, staying indoors when you can, just going out for those essential services. Together as a team here, we're going to kick this COVID-19 virus in the butt. And when we're all done with this, I hope to see you out there in the field, shooting out there in person. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.